Section 1. The Haunted Bicycle. Read this airy story about a man whose attempt to do a good deed by helping some children leads him into a chilling adventure. Note how skillfully Ruskin Bond builds the tension in this short tale.
I was living at the time in a village about 5 miles out of Shahganj, a district in East Uttar Pradesh, and my only means of transport was a bicycle. I could, of course, have gone into Shahganj on any obliging farmer's bullock cart. But, in spite of bad roads and my own clumsiness as a cyclist, I found the bicycle a trifle faster. I went into Shahganj almost every day, collected my mail, bought a newspaper, drank innumerable cups of tea, and gossiped with the tradesmen. I cycled back to the village at about 6 in the evening, along a quiet, unfrequented forest road. During the winter months it was dark by 6, and I would have to use a lamp on the bicycle. One evening, when I had covered about half the distance to the village, I was brought to a halt by a small boy, who was standing in the middle of the road. The forest at that late hour was no place for a child. Wolves and hyenas were common in the district. I got down from my bicycle and approached the boy, but he didn't seem to take much notice of me. "What are you doing here, on your own?" I asked. "I'm waiting," he said without looking at me. "Waiting for whom? Your parents?" "No, I'm waiting for my sister." "Well, I haven't passed her on the road," he said. "She may be further ahead. You'd better come along with me. We'll soon find her." The boy nodded and climbed silently to the crossbar in front of me. I've never been able to recall his features. Already it was dark, and besides, he kept his face turned away from me. The wind was against us, and as I cycled on, I shivered with the cold. But the boy did not seem to feel it. We had not gone far when the light from my lamp fell on the figure of another child who was standing by the side of the road. This time it was a girl. She was a little older than the boy, and her hair was long and windswept, hiding most of her face. "Here's your sister," I said. "Let's take her along with us." The girl did not respond to my smile, and she did no more than nod seriously to the boy, but she climbed up onto my back carrier and allowed me to pedal off again. The replies to my friendly questions were monosyllabic, and I gathered that they were wary of strangers. Well, when I got to the village, I would hand them over to the headman, and then he could locate their parents. The road was level, but I felt as though I was cycling uphill. And then I noticed that the boy's head was much closer to my face, and that the girl's breathing was loud and heavy, almost as though she was doing the riding. Despite the cold wind, I began to feel hot and suffocated. "I think we'd better take a rest," I suggested. "No!" cried the boy and girl together. "No rest!" I was so surprised that I rode on without any argument. And then, just as I was thinking of ignoring their demand and stopping, I noticed that the boy's hands, which were resting on the handlebar, had grown long and black and hairy. My hands shook, and the bicycle wobbled about on the road. "Be careful!" shouted the children in unison. "Look where you're going!" Their tone now was menacing and far from childlike. I took a quick glance over my shoulder and had my worst fears confirmed. The girl's face was huge and bloated. Her legs, black and hairy, were trailing along the ground. "Stop!" ordered the terrible children. "Stop near the stream." But before I could do anything, my front wheel hit a stone and the bicycle toppled over. As I sprawled in the dust, I felt something hard, like a hoof, hit me on the back of the head, and then there was total darkness. When I recovered consciousness, I noticed that the moon had risen and was sparkling on the waters of a stream. The children were not to be seen anywhere. I got up from the ground and began to brush the dust from my clothes, and then hearing the sound of splashing and churning in the stream, I looked up again. 2 small black buffaloes gazed at me from the muddy, moonlit water.
Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond lives in Mussoorie, India. He writes poems, short stories and books for children and adults. He has been awarded with Sahitya Academy Award the Padma Shri and the Padma Bhushan for his literary effort. The Scarecrow. Female narration audio missing. Read this narrative of a frightening, inexplicable incident from the narrator's childhood. Though years have passed, some things can never be forgotten.
I live on a small farm, far out in the country. Every year, my dad puts out scarecrows in our fields because he thinks they're effective in not only keeping the crows out, but evil spirits as well. I guess he's a little superstitious. The scarecrows he sets out are the same ones, year after year. After so much wear and tear, they were showing their age. This October started out like any other October. The weather was turning cool, and the leaves were beginning to change into brilliant orange and yellow colors. One Saturday, us kids got together and decided to make a new scarecrow. Being creative, we gathered our supplies and got to work. This scarecrow was to be different. This was my special design. I wanted a creepy scarecrow, much scarier than the others. Hours later, we finished up. Indeed, he was the ugliest, most frightening scarecrow I've ever seen. I was so proud. Mom called us for supper, so we planted the scarecrow out in the cornfield, where I could see it from my bedroom window. Not giving it any more thought, we went in and ate. Soon, the wind picked up and it began lightning. No storm was forecast, but it looked like we were in for a rough night. Light rain began falling as I went up to bed. I was worried about my new scarecrow, so I peeked out my window. What I saw shocked me. He was there all right, but not where we had placed him. It appeared to me that he was several feet to the right. Puzzled, I stood at the window and watched intently. The lightning was bright, and every time it flashed, I could see my scarecrow. The problem was, it looked as if he was moving when the sky was dark, only to turn up in another spot when the sky lit up. Thinking that I must be imagining things, I put on my pajamas and went to bed. Later on, a loud crack of thunder woke me up. By now, the rain was pounding down, making it difficult to see out my window. I slipped on my shoes and snuck outside to check on my scarecrow. Not sure where he was, I walked around in the thunderstorm, half blinded by the cold, stinging rain. Clumsily, I stumbled over a fallen branch and fell face down in a patch of mud. When I looked up, there was my scarecrow, glaring down at me. His eyes were huge and glowing red. I couldn't pick myself up fast enough. I ran screaming back into the house and never looked back. After tossing and turning the rest of the night, I woke up to bright sunshine and the smell of bacon. Not wanting to tell my parents what had happened, I sat quietly and ate breakfast. Anxious and apprehensive, I then went outside to look around. My dad was already looking for damage to the buildings, but I was looking for my scarecrow. I could see the other scarecrows all in their usual places, but my scarecrow was nowhere to be found. Full of confusion, I began crying, not because of losing the scarecrow, but because of pure, unadulterated fear. My father told me that he probably blew away and would be discovered in a field during harvest. I knew better. Somehow, some way, that scarecrow came alive. How? I don't know. 10 years later, years have passed, and to this day I have never seen my scarecrow again. What happened that stormy night? Do scarecrows really keep out evil spirits? Or can they be possessed by one? I don't live on that farm anymore, but I've never ventured outside during a thunderstorm again.